Please continue to answer the question raised by Mr. Yu Si Wing. Thank you. Regarding the third question, which is about this new post to be created and what will be the responsibilities of the incumbent. The incumbent of this post will be reviewing the 100 markets, and after the review and in view, and he will set targets for those reviews, those markets, and then he will also work out a priority. We hope that to make the markets become more vibrant, and that both hardwares and softwares will be more modernized. With all these targets, and they will actually be, standards for new markets. The CE in his policy address also had mentioned that for those areas where the facilities, those are insufficient, will consider whether we will build new markets. So the incumbent will review the needs of these different districts to see whether we need to build new markets and what should be the standards for these new markets. With the creation of this post, I think it will really, help with our work in respect of markets. My next question is in respect of paragraph 36. The government had adjusted the rents for public markets and had encountered objection, and hence the rents have been frozen for 10 years. So the rents for these stores are already very, very low. With the improvement in facilities, will you be also adjusting the rents depending on the location and the hardware provisions? And are there any guiding principles? Or would it be for the incumbent of this post to work with the stakeholders before arriving at the standard? Thank you. You refer to paragraph 36. That is actually the consultant's study. In 2017, in March, actually, after we presented an account to the panel, on the 7th of January last year, I think the rentals for markets have been frozen for 19 to 20 years. Starting July 1st last year, we already have increased the rent. For this particular post, regarding the mechanism for rental adjustment, I think this incumbent will need to take a look at that as well. Of course, he will need to bear in mind the policy of the government, but he will also need to liaise closely with the stakeholders. And we will listen to different views in the process. Eddie G. Thank you. I would like to go to A of the administration's response. And here they refer to the Tung Chung New Town extension, and the government said that they have located a site for building a new market. When we discussed the funding application for the Tung Chung reclamation, our colleagues from the Development Bureau said that that market will not be a standalone building because the site which has been planned for this purpose, it's actually a major development, and then some space will be allocated to build a market. So, but I have the impression here that what you're saying here is different from what we've been told earlier. So I'd like to clarify this point. If you say the construction period is 3 years, if you're going to build it as an independent structure, but if it were only part of another commercial or other developments, then it may not be 3 years, because you have to wait for it will have depend on the progress of the other private developments. Could the PS clarify, please? Thank you. It is still a very early stage. We all know that we need to have reclamation in Tung Chung. What we are saying does not conflict with what the Development Bureau had said. What the Bureau was talking about was, multiple uses on the same site or lot. So in the course of planning, we will strive to arrive at the best option. So in Tung Chung, the new market will not be a standalone structure. Will it be part of another development? Well, it's still at a very early stage, and they need to plan and they to reclaim, carry out reclamation work. So we are not able to give you an answer at this stage. So the answer is that you don't know. At the planning stage, there are still some unknown variables. I know there are unknown variables. I'd like to know what is the present status. Mr. Wong. Thank you. I understand Mr. Chu's concern. You want the market to be completed ASAP. We're now at the planning stage and we don't have sufficient information to tell Mr. Chu how we're going to build this market. In the paper, we're saying that once the site is available, when the financial arrangements are in place, the construction period for a major building structure, the construction period will be for 3 years. But you cannot, use it as reference here. Well, this is still a reference, except that at the planning stage, we cannot specifically say whether it's going to be a standalone building or not. But even if we incorporate it into another structure, we can still do it as soon as possible. For the second half of Part A, I think you mentioned to a particular member, I think you're referring to Mr. Holden Chow. For Tung Chung residents, they would like the market not to be placed in Tung Chung East, but rather in the town center or somewhere more accessible. And you've written this paragraph, which is very difficult to comprehend. For example, you're saying that the relevant bureau is following up on whether or not we're going to adopt a multi-use development model. Enhancing the plan, the government will take on board views of members and continue to liaise with stakeholders. What are you saying? Are you acquiescing to Mr. Holden Chow's request or what? Chairman, as the Permanent Secretary said, this new post, I think, as we said in the policy address, we will explore the possibility to build new markets where there are insufficient provision. Same for Tung Chung. So we have an open mind on this. Well, Chairman, this is very important. We always have the impression that if it is Tung Chung, the government will say, we'll only give you one market. Now you're saying there could be more than one. But have you adjusted your standards? Is it that in Tung Chung we can have 2 more public markets? Is that what you're saying? What I mean is that if the community or some electoral members point out that there are shortages of markets, then we will look into the possibility of providing markets in those areas. You need to press your bell again. Chen Chi-chin. Chairman. In the first round, the government was answering my question as to whether the new management model will be a single tenant model. This is what we are very concerned about. My last question also asked the government this, that is, with this new post created, now, since all these duties all along have been carried out already, would it mean that with this new post created, will you be able to carry out such work duties or more expeditiously? Will you be able to give us some targets? We heard about Taiwan market. In 2014, you obtained 80% consent and you're able to move ahead, and only in 2020 will the market be air-conditioned. One could easily build a completely new market with such time. So the speed is not desirable. With the new post created, can we, shorten the time required? Could you answer our question with specific examples? Ms. Wong. After the creation of this post, the department will have more than 10 staff, so there will be more sufficient manpower. resources. Regarding the procedure, working with other departments and other follow-up work, they will undertake all that. And we believe that with the creation of this new division and with sufficient manpower, I'm sure the timetable can be expedited. Don't just tell us that it will be expedited. Now, in Taiwan, for example, in a similar scenario like Taiwan would happen again, if you were to get the consent from 80% of the tenants today, and you need to air condition the market, how much faster can the project be made? With this new post created, would we be able to reduce the time required by a third? I think we need to look at the facts. We're talking about some old markets. To air condition these old markets is more difficult than air conditioning a new market, because there are some stores in operation there already. So if we don't have the space to increase the loading or to provide for a power room, then we wouldn't be able to do it. So we need to talk to each and every tenant to decide where we are going to spill the power room and switch room. But with this dedicated team, we have 11 markets for which we have already obtained consent, and we can proceed. Right now, given our organizational structure and resource constraint, although there are 11 in the pipeline, we cannot do it earlier. With this new division set up, we will be able to cover these 11 markets earlier. So we need to deal with the objective reality. We need to, deal with the tenants, and we need to obtain the necessary manpower. And with all that in place, I think we would be more efficient. So this project is about improving the efficiency of the market. In the 6, you pick 6 markets, 2 in Kowloon East, 2 in NT West, but none in NT East. You say for the 100 markets in future, how do you plan to, decide to improve the facilities of those markets? When we conducted the consultancy study, those 6 markets were picked like samples, and the experience gain could be replicated in other markets. So the consultant picked markets of different sizes and in different locations, both markets in the urban area and the new territories. But it may not be able to pick select markets from all the districts, including NT East. But for the review, we'll be looking at all the 100 markets for NT East and other markets. With the creation of this post, we'll be looking at all these markets and see how we can improve them. We will review the situation in respect of those 100 markets. Fernando Zhang. In the first round, I said that I hope the incumbent of this post and this new division, the market division, will make sure that all the public markets are, accessible and make this a priority. I've not heard the government making a commitment here. Ms. Wong only said that whenever the government want to make any changes, they would require that you would make sure that you will follow the latest guidelines. It's only when you need to convert the markets. It's like the private vehicles. It takes more than 10 years to replace the old vehicles. So do we have to wait until the markets are due for renovation before they will be made accessible? And the rest we have to wait. The new division will review the 100 markets to see where improvements are necessary. Of course, accessibility would be something we need to review. But we must understand that we're talking about existing markets, and there are some constraints in these markets. Wherever possible, we will try our best to follow up. But if we are facing some real actual constraints which cannot be overcome, I hope the public will understand. So that's not an answer. You say you try your best, you do your best, given the constraint, and you hope you hope to have the indulgence of the public. So what's the point? We're now in 2018. Whether it's senior citizens and other people who are disabled, you say, we'll see, you do your best. In that case, you don't even need to bother to meet here. You just have to consider the situation and do your best. Please, for the 100 markets, for those which are still inaccessible, when are you going to make improvements? When will you be able to complete the universal accessibility work? Please give us a paper and, in respect of each and every market. Mr. Wong. Thank you, Dr. Zhang, for your comment. We fully understand your concern. For these markets, many of them were built in the 1990s, and the building standard then were not as good as they are now. Right now, the government has this new requirement. We understand that the population is aging. And it's not just that we need to deal with markets. There are other things we need to take care of. But this time we are setting up a dedicated team to improve the operating environment of markets and to see how we can improve the users. So if we can adopt the current standard, we certainly do so. In the course of making the improvement, this is something that we must do. But I don't see that you have the determination. You say this team responsible for improving the hardwares. One of the things they must look at is to turn all these markets into universally accessible, markets. I think this should be your priority. I'd like to thank Mr. Dr. Zhang for that question. We have this project to improve the operating environment of markets, and eventually it will be the public that will benefit, and that the operators can have better business, and the market will become more viable. We want to make an improvement, but we look at all 100 markets. We've got a priority. For some of the newer and better markets, we may not, deal with them first, but for some markets which need improvements, so that they could become universally accessible, certainly this would be part of the work that we would do. Could you give us a paper, Mr. Siu Ka-chun? Thank you. I think the FEHD does not have to answer members' question like that, saying that it will depend on the circumstances. I can say, vouch that if the FEHD has the commitment, they can do it. I've refer to the Hungary Street Market in Chinwan, where there are some water barriers which are causing obstructions to the patrons of the market. And after I made the comment, when I went to the market recently, those barriers have been removed. So if the FEHD wants to do something, they can do it.
So for the whole thing, I'd like to thank FEHD for anyway responding. But it's also about communication after all. Issue about actions to be taken. And we are worried also whether the public can maintain communication with the department so as to see real actions being taken. The follow-up actions are taken. So I hope that the department can really pay more attention to that. I remember once on the Chinwan Chungking market, we had a discussion on how to revitalize it. Yet after the discussion, we had a meeting once. I'd like to thank you for giving us the time for the meeting, and yet not to mention revitalizing. It has been satisfied, the market itself. So the Chungking market is a bad example, you can see. So on this post itself, well, it's meant to lead a new market division, but on markets, there were reports that for new markets, there will be outsourced to non-governmental parties. And it was reported that there could be social enterprises or NGOs taking over the markets. I'd like to clarify what sort of organization will be responsible for operating and managing new markets, and how would the government handle applications for managing the markets? What's the mechanism like? How would you invite tenders? How do you screen applicants? We've said many times, we wonder whether you need to outsource the work. Why not FEHD do the work itself? But still, like to ask you, if you were to outsource the work, if that's your policy, can you give us the information, the details? Mr. Wong. Thank you. Mr. Xu, for your question. We don't have a policy to outsource our work, let's make it clear. But as the chief executive said in her policy address, we would have new thinking in operating the markets, including, in relation to the building of new markets. And in the policy address, it's mentioned that we will consider new management models. As for what is the best approach, is it as reported that NGOs could be the operator, or whether, as the consultants mentioned, there should be a single operator or what? There are various models that we can consider. And that's exactly why we create the post, to lead a team to deal with that. Now that we have new markets to run, then how can we have a better design for the market so that there can be more space between stores, wider corridors, and so forth? So it's about the design and also the management model, whether it should be solely run by FEHD or be run by other parties. These are all the areas that remain to be looked at. So we don't have a decision yet, but we are determined to review the whole situation so that for the new generation of markets, they can really meet social needs. Just then, the administration, gave us a reply showing somehow your determination to get things done. But I really look forward to seeing how things will change. You mentioned new thinking on, showing new approaches in future markets, but I really look forward to the new thinking, because outsourcing your work isn't anything new. It is, on the contrary, a common approach adopted by the government now. So if you want to demonstrate new thinking, I would look forward and support to your really exercising of new thinking. Next one is Chen Chi-chun. Chairman, I'm really worried that 5 years later, after the post is created, nothing gets done. Because after your review of 100 markets, you promised to review the markets, and yet after that, what improvements will be made? What goals would you like to reach? I can't see. For old markets, they are limited by the old buildings, the architectural plan. It's difficult to make changes there. And yet, I just heard that after the review of the 100 markets, but when the time comes for you to build new markets, then you would avoid making the same mistakes. That's, I think, shows what Xu Kao-chun said, your bold determination. But then you have not made any promise on what to do with old markets. Mr. Koh, when he was the secretary, he never promised to do anything to the old markets, because the old markets themselves, vary so much in standards. There are lots of vacant stores in some old markets. Very few customers are there. Therefore, you dare not build new ones, because you don't have any formula to make the public market work. So you don't want to see new markets being used for storage purposes. You don't want to see that happening again. And Carrie Lam shows determination to build new markets, and you seem to be glad about that. But if you don't know what approach to adopt, if you just use the old ways, then that's really worrying. So I hope that the administration can make it clearer what you're gonna do. And also in enclosure 5, as for duties, we want to review and optimize management models of markets, and also increase cooperation with stakeholders. Can you give us more details? How are you going to review the consultation mechanism? Mr. Wong? I think I can address Mr. Chan's concerns. Let me give you a bit of history. Many markets, during the municipal council's era, the markets were built to relocate the hawkers who were really operating in very bad environments. But because of the design back then, many stores in the old markets were very small, 3 square meters in size, 12 square meters in size, very, very small. 3 inches times 4 inches in size in some cases. For someone to operate a store, that's really difficult. And all their goods actually are put on the corridors, blocking people's access. So I hope that in the design of new markets, we can try to have design that really meet the needs of modern-day retails. If the new markets are properly managed, I'm sure there's a chance that the new markets can really meet the changing social needs. And that's exactly why in the policy address and also in this proposal for funding, we like to get all those works done. Yong Hao-yan, next. I think members have heard that we all lack confidence in the government, even though you are creating actually this AOSG D2 post. I think it'll be filled by someone from internal promotion. But how can you ensure that someone promoted internally can have the new thinking? As you promised, you said that there are problems with the old management methods, like problems with rats, rodents, and also hygiene issues. And those are lingering issues that remain unresolved. So how can you try to get an existing staff member to take charge of the new market projects? How can you make us support your funding request? Thanks, Ms. Yong, for your question. Creating this post is not intended to get that person to work alone, but we'll have a specialized team working alongside that person. And also, we will actually learn from all the problems and lessons learned from the markets built in the 50s, 60s, and so forth. FEHD, various colleagues, whether it's the health inspector and so forth, our staff have got experience over the years, so we want to apply the old experience in our future work. And we've also learned from operations of other markets, and we would know what the public expects, and we study that so that we can incorporate all these experience and ideas so as to run new markets better to meet social needs. I think besides learning lessons from the past, I think the government existing officials should really learn new skills like management, take management classes. From very experienced companies experienced in running markets. You may want to have exchanges with these companies or learn from overseas. So if you want to have new thinking, you need to come up with new elements so as to give us confidence in your work. Thank you, Ms. Yong. Definitely, we will absorb other people's experience and advice. Fernando Zhang, in the supplementary paper given to us by the Bureau, page 5 of the paper, at the top, point 2, it says that one of the effects is that it's expected that with the creation of the post and the division, communication can be maintained with various stakeholders and various views can be consolidated to take forward or kickstart various action plans. Well, these are official jargons, but I think there must be a process in which the stakeholders will actually be consulted and a plan will be drawn up. So can you be more specific? Of all the markets in different districts, now with the creation of the post and the division, what plans, timetables do you have for each market, and what methods would you use to communicate with the stakeholders, and who are those stakeholders? You have staff stationed at each market. You even have an office there. In Taiwan market, one thing ridiculous about it is the only The only area in the market where it is air-conditioned is the office of the FEHD staff. The staff work in an air-conditioned office, whereas outside, within other areas of the market, is so hot. So I don't know how you're gonna... Are you going to open up the FEHD office and markets to everyone? That is, sometimes during the day you will invite stakeholders, including the shoppers, residents in the district, who may have views about the market. Would you invite them into the office? I've seen young people who have tried to provide creative solutions. There are students I saw in the market who actually set up their own stores to try to provide better signage to guide users in the market. So I think they're doing various kinds of work to try to improve participation, improve patronage of the market. So with the new division, how are you going to let the public or the stakeholders have more engagement? Thank you, Ms. Wong. Okay, our past experience is such that under the current framework, of course, our staff will liaise with tenants, shop owners, district council, management committee members, and various stakeholders. We do maintain close ties with them, and in 2015, when we appointed the consultants, we had conducted consultative committees, bring in the stakeholders, consumers, academics, to gauge public opinions. I'm sure after the new division is set up, the team would review the channels for communication. 2 minutes. Okay, second part of my question was not answered yet. I was asking about Duty 5 to evaluate the mode of management of markets, including review of the market management consultative mechanism and to enhance coordination, collaboration with stakeholders. Can you tell me how are you going to review the management mechanism? What sort of criteria would you have? Thank you. We know that there are lots of stakeholders for markets. So if you want to have an air conditioning system installed, the stakeholders include the tenants who might not want to see the market closed for a period of time to install the air conditioning, and they would not want to see the number of stores reduced in order to accommodate the plant room and so forth. So we need to resolve that kind of issue before we can enhance the environment of a market. We do have a consultative mechanism for markets comprising district councillors and tenant representatives, but there's room for improvement in the mechanism. The management or the market management consultative committee, can it really fully incorporate users' views? This is also among the topics that we will review, so as to address various demands, including demands from MAGCO members. For example, you are saying that there are some young entrepreneurs who want to use the market for their own purpose, or the simple question of whether to install air conditioning. That's also a topic we need to address. And during our review, we need to come up with a good mechanism to address all these various concerns. Would you consider letting residents or community groups manage markets together with FEHD, or to decide on policies together? We have an open attitude on that. Attitude next, 4 minutes. Thank you, Chairman. 2 questions following up on what I asked last time. That is the Bureau in relation to the demands for new markets. What sort of criteria do you have in assessing or studying the various demands? Wan Xiuqin kept saying that the planning standards and guidelines lack the criteria for public markets. So I don't know what sort of criteria you are adopting. And you responded by saying that you carry out a study. But how are you going to do the study? For example, all along you've said that Yuen Long, there needs to be a new market there, and you said that it needs to be located in Hung Shui Kiu. And yet when more voices were made, you said Tin Shui Wai will have a new market too. Now in Tung Chung, you said there will be one in Tung Chung East. Now you say that there could also be a multi-story market in downtown Tung Chung. So I want to know your criteria. Is it that if more voices are heard on a particular case, then you will take action if people make enough noises? Can you make it clear so we know, what to follow? And secondly, similar to what the other colleagues have said about engagement, in Kwai Fong, there is a Wing Fong Street Market. That is one of the 6 markets you've chosen for your pilot scheme. There is an organization there, the Kwai Fong Wai Residents Concern Group. Together with some urban planners, they have been studying how they can improve hygiene and facilities in the market there. I think they do not intend to fix the Kwai Fong Wai market. As you know, many tenants there, shop operators there, are really opposed to major redecoration. And you said that for minor works, you need to follow the existing mechanism to apply for funding. I'm sure you'll take, you go beyond the 2020 before any projects can be completed. So in the area near the market, there's a playground nearby. So do you think that it's possible to build a community complex in the playground so that you can have the complex built much earlier than having this more unvisited or not popular at all market being fixed? Because if you want to fix that market, it could take you 5 to 10 years. So why not find a different location to build a multi-story facility? Would you study the idea, and how would you decide what criteria would you use? Ms. Wong, I think based on Eddie Chu's view, we would consider that, but we're not going to comment on individual case. But on the 2 points he made, I'll try to respond. In building the criteria for building new markets, as mentioned by members, the Hong Kong Planning Guidelines and Standards on public markets, they do have criteria and provisions on them. That is, they'll be based on population and community needs, existing supply of fresh food stores and so forth. In the policy addresses in October last year, it's mentioned that in areas with inadequate facilities, the government would study building new markets. And in January and October last year, the 2 policy addresses mentioned that in Tung Chung, Tin Shui Wai, Hung Shui Kiu, there will be new markets built.
For other areas where there are claims that there are insufficient market facilities, we will work on the markets on a step-by-step approach. That will come later. Well, Mr. Eddie Chu, you refer to the Yuen Long market, and in fact you are talking about the market in Hung Shui Kiu. And now the policy address said that Tung Shui Wai will be provided with a public market. I really don't get your logic or your criteria. Did you get my point? We would take a progressive approach, but the 2 have not been built, Hung Shui Kiu and Tin Shui, and then as the discussion goes on, then you are promising for more and more markets. So it's really a talk shop. You're not really dealing with things in a pragmatic manner. Well, we will take a step-by-step approach. Now, on your second question, which has not been answered, in the consultant's report for the 6 markets, including the one in Wing Fong Street, we have had views from all sides, including community planners and other academics. And for the individual cases or public markets, the post holder in the future will try to listen to views from different stakeholders. Ms. Claudia Mo, 5 minutes. Thank you, Chairman. This post, I'd envisage, will be filled by someone internally. That will be a promotion. And the beauty of it is that an outsider will be brought in, and then an outsider will be leading somebody in the field or some professionals. The problem is that the person may be too familiar with the situation and they can't really see the true picture. And then the administration said that it's not the person working on it alone. He will be backed up by a team. And I hope that several years later there are indeed results to be seen. The administration said that they will consider carefully and look at the situation meticulously. Well, they said the same for every kind of initiative. But then a few years passed and no achievement has been made, usually. So that's very undesirable. But you seem to have shown some determination to come up with a good public market policy. Now, as I heard your briefing on this new post, my feeling is that you will work mostly in the new territories. And for the urban areas, the old markets there, say those in the Kowloon city, you would not touch on them for the time being. You would be working on Tongchong, Tinshui, Waihong Q public markets. Is this really the case? That's my first question. Question number 2. You said that you would meet with new social needs. Apart from the size of the public market, you said you would also, well, you said the store is too small in size. It's just 3 times 4 feet. Is it the case that the bigger stores are necessarily better? The public market has to do with people's daily living. People have two choices at present. Either they go to the supermarkets. We have 2 major supermarket chains. And then the other option is they would like to go to, say, the street stores. If you go to Wan Chai, you will understand what I'm talking about. And the customers patronizing the street shops are more in number than those who are visiting a proper public market complex. So this is a trend that we are seeing. But then you are now saying with much fanfare that there is a market division to be set up, and this person will be leading this new market division. Now, at the end of the day, I think you may be making exaggerations here. Is it just a empty talk or a talk shop here? 2 questions. Ms. Wang, thank you, member, for your questions. First, about building new public markets. Please appreciate that in the course of planning, say in the new development areas, the public and also government departments will try to provide public markets in these new NDAs. We have heard views from the members, and they have asked for a public market in Chengguanou and Ma'anshan. And the policy address has stated clearly the government will study into possibility of building new markets where they are in shortage. And Ms. Claudia Mo referred to the post holder, and in our document, we said that it's going to be an AO post. He should have the experience in other policy areas, and he should be familiar with the government working. So that post will be filled through internal deployment. And we've heard members' views that they should not just possess the relevant administrative experience. He should take reference from practices in overseas jurisdictions. As what the assistant director said, we are open to the suggestion that this person should try to draw reference from outside experience. So my question is that it will be focusing on the new markets in the new territories. And second, the shopping habits of Hong Kong people. They either go to supermarkets, and some of them are high-end supermarkets. In fact, and others would like to others would like to patronize some wet markets. No, we would work on both anti and urban areas. But it's just that if some in new development areas, there will be new population. So we have to be taking care of the needs of these people. Now, we have 101 the public markets, and most of them are in developed districts in Hong Kong. And we will try to also improve on their existing conditions to meet the needs of the people. That's what we're going to work on. And also the shopping habits have changed. People used to go to wet markets mainly. Now we're seeing a lot of more competitors, and people's shopping habits have changed. So we try to improve on old markets, and we'll try to build new markets. We'll try to optimize the use of land and other resources. And this is one of the major duties of this dedicated team. Next one, Dr. Chen Cheng-tai, first round, 5 minutes. Declaration of interest. My family members and some friends of mine are working in public markets. Now, several questions. In terms of the staff establishment, you are proposing a new post to lead a new market division. Now, in terms of management of hardware, you've particularly highlighted that. So immediately spring to mind is drainage, pipes, and air conditioners, etc. So my question is, for this new market division, this head of the division, will he be trying to communicate with other government departments more? Will he be more flexible and has more authority in doing so? Let me cite a concrete example. In the past 2 years, there were old markets, say, for example, Taiwan market. Say, if there was a burst of the pipes and there was flooding in the market, and we approached the FEHD, and the FEHD said that it's related to the DSD, and because of the old pipes, the pipes had to be replaced. That's a piece of hardware, but that involves different government departments. So in terms of the authority of the FHD, they didn't really have the authority to deal with such problems in hardware in the old markets, in the replacement of the aging parts. Now, for this directorate post holder, in terms of his role, will he have the responsibility to coordinate with other government departments, and will other departments, because of this latest post, will talk to him? So this is my first question. Who to take that? Thank you, Dr. Chang. Mr. Wang. The government is a big one, and the different departments have different policy portfolio. DSD work on pipes, transport department on transport issues. And if FHD has to get the support from other government departments, ASD will take care of the maintenance work and repair. Definitely, we have to work with other government departments. It's just that we didn't have a dedicated market division, and we don't have enough resources to deal with the situation. So our results are not that desirable. So if we have a new market division and a new post, we believe that this person can communicate better with other departments. This is one of his functions. If we want to improve on the hardware, we have to work more with the ASD, and the ASD must also make changes to its resources to dovetail with our requests. So a dedicated team can work better in all these regards. Now, on this point, since we have a new market division and this AO post, which is a directorate post, I hope that the post holder can communicate better with other departments. That's number one. Number two, I'd like to ask, in terms of his responsibilities, he would undertake a review and conduct a study. And in the paper, it seems that there is one thing missing. Has the administration considered that in the course of the review, will the government also include the competition aspect of markets? It's not just about public markets and the links market or facilities. Some small traders in public markets have already lodged complaints that the one-stop chain stores operated by conglomerates have plans to monopolize trades in the market, like those selling vegetables and tofu, bean curd. So the government has the duty to, through this market division, try to balance out the different interests, try to promote healthy competition among all sides. So will the government take on more responsibilities in doing that? Okay, thank you, Dr. Zhang, for your question. I'll try to answer as best as I can. The government's goal or a policy is to promote healthy competition, and we have to be mindful about that overall policy in whatever we do in the different departments. Now, we have to be trying to recruit newcomers to the public market. We have to enhance our tendering process. We have to try to enhance the returns to the community. That will form part of the review. Mr. Kwok Wai Kang, second round, 4 minutes. In my first round, and I asked about the specific goals for this post in the next 5 years. The government's reply is that it's difficult to list out all the checklist for the goals and so on. So they've been very abstract in their answer. They said they will review the strategies for the 100 public markets or so, and they would, in terms of management, they would think up new approaches, and for the 6 representative recommendations, and also for the markets which have got the achieved the threshold for air conditioning installation, that and all, they will try to achieve the best, do the best. Well, for this supernumerary post, after 5 years, either it will be shelved or a new permanent post will be created after this one. So what will happen after 5 years? It's very difficult for us to assess the performance of this person after 5 years if you don't have a sort of a performance indicators. Please try to be specific for the 11 public markets waiting to be air-conditioned. Well, tell us exactly how many of them you can work on after 5 years, so that we can have better confidence in you. Now, some have referred to the ASD. This is a key department. When we talk about installation of air conditioners in public markets, going by the present modus operandi, the ASD has to get involved. And if the ASD is going by the old approach, I am afraid they won't be able to achieve what we asked for. We don't agree with the links approach, but then for the Suisse 1 market managed by Link, they get things done within 3 months. Now, I was in the market consultative committee in Wan Chai market. You said you need 18 months, 6 times that of the links. How can that be? And then if the configuration has to be changed, then it will be even last 2 years. So the traders are strongly against it. If the market will be closed down for 18 months or 2 years, and the customers will be going somewhere else to shop and they won't return. So can you change ASD's approach in working on these public works so that all the works can be expedited? Maybe the ASD can think out of the box, and so they can speed up the work's progress. Well, third question. For the MMCC, is a very they work behind closed doors. I'm an elected Hong Kong Island district councillor. I can't attend their meetings in Nam Long Shan Road. Because of the construction of the Wong Chuk Hang MTR station, the public market has been closed, and the district councillor turned a blind eye to that. And so I got involved and tried to follow up with much efforts. Now, is there any room for improvement in the operation of the MMCC? Well, you've got 30 seconds to respond. 5 years, will you have concrete KPIs? We'll try to do our best. There are some objective facts which are beyond our control. How many public markets can we work on in 5 years as far as installation of air conditioning is concerned? We can't tell. Your KPI is that you would do your best, right? In our paper, we said that we have to conduct the technical assessment, we have to monitor the progress, etc. This is concrete work that we will do. And then after 5 years, we'll come back to tell you whether we will proceed with all the works. Second, about how we take forward our professional works project. We have to work with the ASD in terms of improving the hardware of public markets. It's an overall policy of the government. AVHD is tasked to do that. We have a dedicated team to do it. And I believe the experts and the professionals in the ASD will also do the best job and try their best to meet the needs of the traders and the public's needs. We have to fully cooperate with them. Third, consultation. We understand that there are inadequacies in terms of consultation mechanism. So that's why this time round we said that there should be improvement in the management consultation mechanism so stakeholders' views can be incorporated. And for whatever we do in the market, it will meet with the needs of the people. Mr. Xiu Kachun, this person will be trying to revitalize the software and hardware of public markets. Dr. Fernando Chung asked a question about accessibility. I often visit public markets myself, and there is no tactile maps in the public market. So the visually impaired really can't go to public markets. And also the signs in the toilets, we are also lacking the signs on accessibility and tactile maps and so on. These are very big fundamental problems. I'm not asking you to realign the routes, do an overhaul of the design, but these are little things that you can do. Maybe you can add in the tactile maps, and also you should have signages to facilitate disabled people going to toilets. These are things that you can easily work on. Second question is about rodent infestation. This is indeed a serious problem in the public markets. This is very much also a structural problem. I know that in 2017 there is the anti-rodent campaign launched, covering public markets as well. But I noticed that there are two phases. And that is from 3rd of July to that was from January to March 2017, and also the second phase was from July to September 2017. And you have completed the two phases. Do you think the rodent problem has been eased in public market? What is your assessment of the situation? Well, you said you would try to do your best. But the campaign for 2017 ended. What is your assessment of the situation? Do you have any new thinking to deal with this very, big problem?
Thank you. I'll try my best to answer your question. Regarding the specific measures and how we can have a standardized approach to help the visually impaired, when we're going to improve the market, this certainly will be our priority. For accessible toilets, how we can come up with better signage. We do have standards. If we can do it, we'll certainly do that. What about priority? Is this the top priority, or what is the priority ranking for this initiative? I don't think it's appropriate for us to say definitively what should get the top priority. We will certainly consider a basket of factors, but if we're going to do this, these are the things that we certainly should be able to deliver. On rodents, of course, this is a persistent problem. When we manage the markets, we need to have a focused approach, but the situation varies among the markets. But your approach is the same. You always relied on exhibitions, API on television, and district anti-rodent campaigns. You're always relying on these initiatives. So this is the measures that we need to implement at the high level. But at the district level and among the situation in the 100 markets are different. But our colleagues of the hygiene department have the duty to manage the markets in the respective districts. So how well have you done it? I mean, after you've carried out a campaign, how many rats have you eliminated? Recently, we have reported to the panel regarding the anti-rodent campaign. We do carry out anti-rodent operations throughout the year. We have a dedicated team in the FHD. And we have a small-scale, operation and covering some of the markets as well. We've already explained to the panel that for those 2 small-scale operations, we have achieved some considerable results, and the public also would support further efforts in that direction going forward. James Toh, first round, 5 minutes. Chairman. Let me raise a fundamental point. First of all, we all know that link management is causing a lot of public discontent. For example, the prices charged in the markets they manage, and that in certain markets, in certain district, the markets are a monopoly. So the public has this demand that you should strategically, carry out initiatives to remedy the situation. Of course, we won't recommend you buy back the markets from them because they'll charge you a very high price. But for those areas where the public are suffering, do you have plans to set up markets under your control as compensation? Would the incumbent for this post also be doing this? Thank you, Mr. Toh. As I said, in the policy agenda, we've said that in districts where there are not enough markets, we will study the possibility of providing new markets there. In the policy address, we've said that in Tung Chung, Tin Shui Wai, and Hung Shui Kiu, we will be building new markets. And the job of this colleague is that if we need to build new markets, he will then explore and study what we should do to satisfy the needs of the community. In paragraph 6, you say that in a policy address, it is suggested that you will build new markets in certain districts. But is it that you've already identified those districts? I don't know whether your consultant has already identified those districts, so that this your colleague of yours will not take over to the so-called areas with serious shortage to build a larger markets there. Would you accept those suggestions, or have you already accepted the consultant's report, or have you followed, for example, the decision made by the C, for example, and you will not take a comprehensive look? As I said, we need to go through a process. The policy address identifies 3 districts. And I've said that in areas where there are insufficient facilities, we'll look at those districts. And this colleague will be doing that. In Annex 2, you'll find that the terms of reference for this colleague would include examining, reviewing the standards for markets and so on. So in other districts, he will also be looking at those districts, but he haven't yet taken up his post, so I don't think we can have any progress report. So having heard that, I'm rather concerned. What is most important is that the public will get the service. If the service the public receives, for example, the services of a market, or indeed in certain districts there may be a market. You have markets managed by the link. So are you saying that if link already operates a market, then there is already the provision of the service? Or you have your standards and you say that, for a district with a given population, then there should be a market within a certain distance. I think one market is one of the cause of the public's grievances. So will this incumbent be proactively looking at the issues raised and find out which are the districts where we are having a problem, including, for example, whether we have a monopoly situation in a particular district and whether the prices charged in those markets are unreasonable. Well, this is a very complex issue. Thank you. I don't think he has any preconceived position. He will listen to the aspirations of the community, including those, whether there are any districts where there are shortages, and it is his duty to study that. Dr. Cheng Chung Tai. I asked about competition and also the new market division of the FEHD, how they can enhance the efficiency of the market management. The public is also very concerned about the aging of the market, the vacancy rate, and so on. And I believe that the department is focusing on revitalizing the current markets. Once we talk about revitalization, once the government step in, it would mean disaster. It will expedite the demise of these markets, like revitalizing industrial buildings means the end of the industrial buildings. So the public and the Kaifons are worried because if you air condition the markets, you improve on the hardwares, and you adopt promotion policies and offer concessions and come up with innovative ideas. Once you do these things, rents and management fees will go up correspondingly. Especially we have many markets which are getting old, and for example in Chin King Wai and the one in Chin Wan and the Hinghwa market in Chai Wan, or even the Sai Kung market. You have problems about many of the stores are being vacant. The government is going to rejuvenate these markets. Now, in your review, will you promise that there will be room for a reduction in rent for the market operators? The whole premise of revitalizing market, very often the result of revitalization is that rents will go up. So for the operators, what they are concerned about is whether in districts where markets are managed by the link and where the markets are getting old, does the government have any room to lower the rents, for example? Thank you, Mr. Lau. First of all, We've not increased our rent for the last 20 years. We only made an adjustment in the light of inflation last year. Cutting down the rent is not the best solution. The solution is how we can get the best social return on our investment. So the mechanism for rent adjustment, because we have not dealt with that for the last 20 years, so we do not have any outcome from the current study. So when we carry out the overall review, we certainly will need to address the issue of rents. This is something we definitely need to review, and this dedicated team will need to do it. Chairman. Well, it's because it's been there for a long time and nothing has changed. But now the government is coming with a relatively more drastic measure. Before you start, could you explain clearly whether the rents and the charges will not deviate too much from the current situation? I think this is what the Kaifongs are worried about. Honestly, many of the vacant stores in the old markets, the stores are simply left vacant. Once you implement these new initiatives, they may even, go out of business more faster. I hope you really understand the sentiment of the public. They are most concerned about rents. Claudia Mo, 4 minutes. Thank you. Regarding the hygienic conditions in markets, everybody will be talking about rodents. And we are in a dilemma here. I've asked the same question before, and I don't think I have any satisfactory results. When there are rats, the best solution is to deploy cats. You don't need to train the cats to catch the mouse. Dr. Anjan said that we should train the cats to catch the mouse. When you have cats in the market, it will do. But then you're worried about the hygienic problem because of the cats. I've been to the Kowloon City market. I have taken photos. If you want evidence, I can show it to you. A cat sitting on a shelf in a fish store. The cat will not touch the cat, but he's very good at catching mouse. And cats are very hygienic. You give them a sand pot, he will take care of his, personal hygiene. In the old Shekimei market, the chairman asked me to, visit the market. There were cats being kept by the operators who were actually stars and idols for the Kaifongs. But the FEHD said that cats are not allowed in markets. Why is it that we have cats there? But then I'm told that it's managed by the housing department and they allow for some discretion. So when will you allow such discretion? Thank you. In the contract with the market store operators, it is indeed true. You don't need to repeat that. We all know that already. I've written to the FEHD at least twice, and they gave me the same answer. That is, for hygiene, public hygiene considerations, cats are not allowed, period. But there are still cats in the markets helping to catch the mouse. So what then? Are you going to allow cats in your new markets? Indeed, in some of the existing markets, the question is whether or not we should allow cats there. The director has said previously that they've heard views from the public, so that his department will talk to the stakeholders and the academics and the departments to explore into that. You need to also rely on the help of academics when you need to study whether you need to deploy cats to catch mouse. Stakeholders, I can understand. But what about the store operator next door really hate cats? You may need to consider. What do you mean by you refer to academics? Well, he's saying that the department will talk to the stakeholders. in future, should there be any new progress, we'll certainly, update the panel. Since you have this new direction and new initiative, you are going to build new markets. You're telling us that the stores will become larger in future. Would you consider allowing cats to be kept? Yes, we've heard such suggestions. We are now exploring this possibility. You're not willing to make a commitment here. She's already answered your question that she will explore that option. How long will you need? Do you have other questions? Yes. I don't think you should try to, brush me off like that. I think I've been asking this very same question for 5 years already. Regina, yep. Chairman, we have a working group to discuss the facilities of public markets. Today we've discussed have discussion on many of these matters of relating to details, which I think should be taken up by the working group. There are many things we need to look at, but I don't think we should stop the creation of this post today. I'm grateful to Ms. Yong Hui Wan that we should have a new mindset. So I'd like to ask the Undersecretary to answer this question. You must adopt a new mindset. When the government disposed of the markets in public housing estates, it wasn't just because the government didn't have money not able to manage the market properly. If they increased the rents, they were criticized. They were not able to regulate the hawkers. I heard that the hawkers for some private business, they can ask the triers to evict the hawkers. You raise the rents, you're slow with renovation, and you want to build a new market next to the one managed by the Link managed market, you can't compete. So I don't want to stand in your way. I just want the Undersecretary to tell us, how in future you're going to, perform better than the market. Of course, I cannot come up with a solution that is the best solution. Well, we realize that this is a big issue. We've encountered many difficulties in the past, and that's exactly why we need to set up this working group to explore this issue, knowing that this is a complex issue. I believe the Bureau and the Department will certainly learn humbly from members, and once this post is created, the team will listen to the latest suggestions, and so that we can gradually come up with a solution. We promise that we will adopt an open mind, and we will be listening to your views. Perhaps I'll ask a direct question. Undersecretary, have you actually gone to the market for, to buy groceries? Do you know what the public needs? I've been to the Shaywa Street Market in Kwun and the one in Kumon. I understand the different markets have their respective history and constraints. On the issue of air conditioning these old markets. In the cooked food markets, for example, different markets are different in terms of whether or not they are popular with the customers and whether the ventilation is good or not. I've seen that some residents really would like to visit these old markets and go to the cooked food store there. This is something which I have observed. I believe that traditional markets have their unique role to play, and I think we should allow the public the choice, whether it's new markets, old markets, and managed by the FHD. We will need to continue to change with the time. Chairman, I propose that you go to the Tim Ma Court. It's an example where markets managed by a private entity may not be well managed. I've been there recently, and before the changeover there were lots of problems already. There were not only rats there were also snakes there as well, because where there are rats you will attract snakes.
So you need to ensure that there's efficiency and you can meet market needs. You need new thinking. So I hope that after the post is created, you really look into the situation. Yeah, you really have to study, the relationship between cats, snakes, and rodents. Next one, Pt2. Third round, 3 minutes. Thank you, Chairman. I think there are two parts in the discussion. One is on Kowloon's point about whether we're drawing a realistic picture or abstract picture. This is about PAPI, and then Chairman, early on you said that they would use doing as much as they can as the KPI, but what you meant by that, I think you understood it yourself, but we're still dissatisfied. You can't just say that you try to do the best you can. And just then, James Toll also asked a question similar to what Regina Ip said. Now that the government supports you selling markets to Link, the government thinks that market operators are better, so you want to privatize your properties. But once it happens, people become discontented, and then you try to make public ownership of them, to have public markets again. But then we like to see that you can provide us with more evidence and to give us clearer ideas. Chairman, just as Mr. Wong was saying about the policy agenda in relation to facilities, he made the interesting point that in areas with where facilities are said to be inadequate, it will be studied whether it's feasible to build markets. What do you mean by in areas which are claimed to have inadequate facilities? So do you mean are you talking about the claim about the adequacy of facilities, or whether they're really inadequate facilities? So it's not clear to me what you actually refer to. Just then, PAS said that the planning guidelines and standards covers considerations like population, but I don't think that's the case. Since 2007, the guidelines have been revised. Chapter 6, P, paragraph 3.13 states a different principle. A whole range of factors now are taken into consideration. So please don't use points like claims that facilities are inadequate. Don't just try to explain it that way. We need to have solid foundation for what you want to do. What do you mean? What are the criteria used to measure whether there are adequate or inadequate facilities? So, Bureau, can you give us an answer once and for all? If the facilities are not adequate, then you will study the possibility of building new markets. If people complain about prices are too high, then you will also look into providing markets. So, can you make it clearer? Just then, Mr. Wong did mention it. That is, we would listen to various opinions about claims, the word claims, that if it's claimed that facilities are not adequate, we'll also consider those claims. So, as what members asked, if a place has a market, but the market is monopolized and because prices are too high and people complain about the lack of competition, would you consider building a market there? So okay, you will consider that. Okay, so that's the same as place without adequate facilities. Okay, next one, Holden Chow. Following up what Chairman said, for what do you mean by inadequate facilities, and also point about monopolizing facilities. I think that's a key point. Now that you are trying to create a new post, as mentioned by many members, based on what's mentioned in the paper, I think It's not just to review the operations of new markets. More importantly, the post should have a comprehensive review of demand for public markets across Hong Kong, particularly in terms of public needs. The paper says that the policy mentioned 2 public markets, one in Tongzhong, one in Tin Shui Wai, that will be built in Tongzhong. It will be built in Tongzhong East in the town extension area. But I've said this several times. The new town extension area in Tongzhong, of course, will need a market. But right now in Tongzhong, people living there now, they also have asked for a public market. We have written to you, to the chief executive, saying that we told you the location, possible location in downtown Tongzhong for a public market. I hope that after creating the post, as you've heard from members today, you need to gauge the demand for a market in a place. I hope that really the post will consider the demand and the need in a place, and instead of just following a route strictly, to see what how market should operate in the future alone, and whether a place has adequate facilities alone. You need to, be open to the need of a district. So let me add this. Would you consider adding to the indicators lack of competition or inadequate competition? How about inadequate competition? Would you consider that as well as a consideration or criterion? Yes, we would consider all the factors, definitely. Okay, so we want them to add to the list of considerations inadequate competition. Next one, Fernando Jern, 2 minutes. Oh, Chairman, you're back. So your happy days are over. Well, we'll stick around. Well, the FEHD's point about trying to do the best at the KPI, where for the 11 markets with more than 80% tenant support for installing air conditioning system, when will the project be kicked off? When will the system be installed in all the markets, Ms. Wong? Thank you. In my reply earlier, I said that we would make full use of the new team to expedite the installation work in markets where there is consent on installing the air conditioning system. In the past, because of lack of resources, we could not deal with the installation in one go. But now we can speed up our work, and so we were not satisfied with the progress in the past. Definitely now with the new team, and also with the resources and support of the ASD, we can definitely in one go install the air conditioning in all the markets. Hopefully, have them all installed more quickly. But in all markets, to have air conditioning facilities there are constraints because there are so many small stores in those old markets, and we need to find the adequate space to build a plant room. It's not easy to accommodate that. So that's the problem facing old markets. And we need to discuss with the stakeholders and the tenants whether perhaps some stores could be demolished to make room for the facilities needed. And who will agree to sacrifice? We need to deal with that, but we would definitely follow up on the plan to build the facilities in the 11 markets. Well, we discussed it many times already. Okay, you have to wait. Ron Kwong, next 5 minutes. Well, creation of market division. I'm concerned about Tin Shui Wai. Can you reveal to us more? That is in Tin Shui Wai market. What's the progress there? What's the location there? What location will it be? There could be other market facilities, and I want to get more from you. What's your plan and the progress of the plan for market in Tin Shui Wai? The progress, please. Thank you, Mr. Kwong. I think not just you. I think others have. Many people have asked us, but I think it's not the right time yet for us to review too many details. But all I can say is that in the just released policy address, proposal was made to build the Tin Shui Wai market. But before even the new team is created, we have studied how to go about doing that, implementing it with other departments. Yes, I know you're going to build it, but I would like to get more details about your plan. Chairman, I was in Tin Shui Wai earlier, meeting with residents, having residents community meetings, and they asked me, now it's 2018, so will there be more details about the plan? In Tin Shui Wai, as you know, in the past, the markets were monopolized by the link, and residents are complaining about the high rents and the prices for groceries. So therefore, people are waiting for the building of a public market. It's very important to them because with that market, they would know that at least the rents there will be lower and will be managed by FVHD, and the public markets would actually pose competition to markets run by Link. I think this is the optimal time for me to ask you questions. I was really sincere about your progress in the Tin Shui Wai market plan. At least with the creation of the post, would it be helpful with the Tin Shui Wai plan? If you had done a lot of work before today, then what's the point? Why the need for having the new post created? Yes, I know you want to get more details, but there are things I can't disclose at this stage. Why can't you disclose more details? We're still doing the study, so we don't have a definite answer yet, so it's not the right time for me to give you the details. But I can tell you that after the post is created, the design, construction, and operation of the Tin Shui Wai market will benefit from new thinking. So it's not so much about location, but about how to implement the plan. How can we learn from past experiences, and also how can we operate the market better? Some people like us, FVHD, to operate the market, or there could be other alternatives. So the new director, assistant director, would do the work. It's kind of vague. I was trying to be patient, but you said that I asked you about the progress, and you said that you could not disclose the details. But how are you going to consult people on the location? Tin Shui Wai is so big. There's the north of it and the south. How are you going to consult the people there? How would you do the consultation? We're still studying the locations. My question was, how are you going to get public opinions? Well, sorry. I was trying to be sincere in answering. I didn't mean to give you an answer, but the Tin Shui Wai market plan, many stakeholders have given us ideas on the locations. We need to study various options. When we are ready to disclose the details, I'll definitely let various stakeholders know. We will be pragmatic. We are really serious about the work. Okay, when do you think it's a mature time to tell us the details? Now you're going to create a new post. Would you have a timetable? I'm worried that 3 years from now, you still tell us that the time is not right for you to tell us the details. Well, I'll be killed by you if I can't give you the details 2-3 years from now. Well, I meant that I really appreciate your frankness, but we're not violent. I know your concern. I know where you want perhaps see the market built, but at least you can brief us on the progress. At least you should give us a gift by telling us what has been done so far on the Tin Shui Wai market. We've done a lot of work in relation to Tin Shui Wai market. Well, let me tell you, we are supposed to deal with 10 items today, but we've only finished 1 today. And there's also next item on the agenda on the pay increase for judges and the judicial officers. So we'll see whether we can finish that item at least today. There are also items, for example, application for CSSA. So please mind the time. Next one is Claudia Mo. First of all, let me remind the government about your papers. I mean, the language used in those papers is problematic. Just then you said claims that facilities are inadequate in Chinese. Claims in Chinese have a negative connotation. He claims to be rich. He claims to be poor. There's a connotation that the person making the claim is not confident. Like ISIS claims that it should take responsibility. It's a negative word. Allegedly, in English. Same as that word in meaning. So not just your FEHD or Food and Health Bureau papers. Yesterday there was a paper done by the government which had the same problem. All along we have said 在用 in Chinese in relation to crowdedness, and yet a different Chinese wording or term was used in the paper. So why do you change the language? Why do you need to come up with a more unfamiliar Chinese expression? But luckily, LegCo made correction. In Chinese, 威斯敏斯特 was that. What do you know the English for it? Westminster. But traditionally, it's 西敏寺 in Cantonese. So that's been corrected, but with 優化 as in revitalization in Chinese is, I don't think your choice of word is that appropriate. Now back to, you need to make improvement, but back to air conditioning. Many have said that air conditioning is needed in summer, no need to debate about that, but the point is, in the winter time, or next month, cold currents are coming. Lately, I was in Wenchai Market. It was air conditioned. So I hope that you will not blindly stick to the rule. When it's cold in the winter time, you can switch off the air conditioning because the difference isn't that big. And yet for the corridor facing the street, the air conditioning is on all year round. So it's a waste of electricity. You don't need aircon there. So when you consider drawing up new market policy, you also need to pay attention to hygiene, particularly for fish stores or meat stores. They're smelly, right? From the car park downstairs all the way up. We're talking about an enclosed environment. So corridors facing the street, the aircon has to be on all day through. Otherwise, to have the place air conditioned all the time, it could be too cold sometimes. Fernando Zhang, I think the Bureau had just told us this afternoon 3 words in Chinese. That means they tried their best. But now we're asked to create a new post for a new division. We need to know concrete plans, goals from you first. At least you need to tell us some basic figures or concrete plans for work. And yet you just responded by saying that you try your best. For the 11 markets, you know that all the barriers are gone now, obstacles not there anymore, and yet you can't tell us when you can complete the project. And you said the various stakeholders, you talk to them, barrier-free assets will be given priority, corridor for the blind will be given a priority. And then when I asked you how you're going to do it, will there be more at the priority list, at the top of the priority list, and you said that you can't comment. So it's all very vague. Chairman, would you ask them to be more specific in their answer?
You try to explain why you sounded so vague. Well, let me try to explain. In terms of installation of air conditioners, the FHD will increase our manpower to work on that. And we have also strived for more resources on the part of the ASD to follow up on the works. In terms of the procedures forward, we can work on several things at the same time. In Taiwan market, and also for Sheiwu streets and Out Court Market. The Undersecretary visited the sites himself. We are very optimistic about the progress. We have talked to the tenants and who hope that they will not be affected in the installation works in Out Court. We don't need the tenants to leave, and for Shui Street, only one store will be affected. We have forged a consensus in these two markets. So for these two markets, the technical assessment will be launched very soon, and at the next stage, funding application will be made. For Wan Chai cooked food market, we will talk. We will try to forge a consensus with the tenants. For these several markets, we will follow up on them. And for the remaining ones, we will work out the details together with the ASD colleagues, and we will conduct a preliminary study. Whenever there is progress, we will definitely report to the panels. There is one 37A motion. If there is no other member asking a question, let's move on to 37A. Let's show it on the screen first. Mr. Raymond Chan has moved this 37A motion. So I will now put to the vote the following motion. So the FC will agree to deal with the motion moved by Mr. Raymond Chan. Do you need to ring the bell? Those who are for, please raise your hand. So there will be a claim for division. So let's have the bell rung for 5 minutes. Well, let me read it out. In accordance with Rule 37A of the FC procedure or menu, I move that since the new post of Assistant Director of FHD bracket Market Special Duties has one of its duties to conduct a review and optimize the management and the operation model of public markets. And in paragraph 40 of the consultant's report, it is said that the government can consider subletting the operation of market to a single operator, and Hong Kong people are worried that this will be the model to be adopted. So this committee asked that the Assistant Director of FHD, bracket Market Special Duties, will immediately study and give an account of whether subletting the operation of the market to a single operator will be the new management model for public markets. I will stop receiving 37A motions. I'd like to remind members that I will not receive any more 37A motions. We have one 37A, and after we're finished with it, then we will vote on the original financial proposal. So we are now going to vote on whether we will deal with this 37A motion. Voting begins. Voting ends. Display of voting results. 11 for, 18 against, 0 abstention. I declare that this FC will not deal with this 37A. If members don't have any questions, then we'll put FCR 2017-1833 to a vote. Those who are in favor, please raise your hand. Those against, please raise your hands. I declare that the proposal is supported by a majority of the members. I declare the proposal endorsed. Now let's move on to FCR 2017-1844, and that is to ask for a pay rise of 2.9% for judges and judicial officers starting 1st of April 2017. The administration wing has consulted the AJLSP on the 30th of October on this proposal, and we have Ms. Kitty Choi, Director of Administration, to answer members' questions. Dr. Priscilla Leung is not here. Dennis Kwok, the AJLSP has discussed this, and we support this pay rise. There are two things that I hope that the director can reflect to the judiciary. There is an inadequate manpower in judges. For the first of instance of the High Court, we still don't have enough manpower. We hope that the new recruitment exercise will start as soon as possible, and pay level should further be increased, and there should be an enhancement of the conditions of service. And the judiciary is also conducting a review on raising the retirement age. I hope that study can be completed as soon as possible. I hope that the director can reflect all these views to the judiciary. Thank you, Mr. Kwok, for your comments. We will definitely reflect your views to the administrator of the judiciary. There is one piece of information that I would like to share. Before Christmas, the judiciary has submitted its report on retirement age to the government, and the government will soon launch a study on this. And if there is a need to amend legislation, we will do it soonest. So this is a piece of information I would like to share with Mr. Kwok. That's all right. Mr. Chen Chi-chin, Raymond Chen. My question is straightforward. We know that it's difficult to recruit judges, and the judiciary is short-handed, and the court cases usually take very long time. And I've compared the pay level between Hong Kong and their counterparts of overseas jurisdictions. And Hong Kong judges are enjoying a pay higher than their counterparts overseas. So how come that it's difficult to recruit enough judges? If that is the case, if it is not, has nothing to do with the pay, what other factors are affecting the recruitment? Thank you, Mr. Chan, for your question. For the JJOs in the Standing Committee of the on Judicial Salaries and Conditions Service, in 2015, they conducted a benchmark study. They interviewed a large number of barristers and solicitors. Let me share the results of the study. Their view are that pay is not the main factor in people considering whether to join the government as the judiciary as judges. Rather, the more important factors are the commitment to serve the society, the status of the judges, and so on. And when we have in-depth discussions with these respondents, some barristers told us that they didn't want to join the judiciary because the job come with less freedom and less privacy, and there was onerous workload. So again, it shows that pay is not the prime consideration. It's rather a choice of in the career of these people. Let me give you more information. The veteran barristers also showed that they would say towards the latter part of their career, when they were in their 50s, they would be more interested in joining the judiciary. That is to say, when they have security in terms of their livelihood and revenue, then they would be considering joining the judiciary. Dr. Chang Chung-tai, I have a short question. In terms of manpower shortage, apart from judges and other relevant related grades, we see that, say, at the magistrates and also lower levels of court, there has been a high turnover rate. So I hope the Directive Administration can convey our views or concerns on this to the judiciary. And there is also a succession problem, which is very serious. To my understanding, at the magistrates' courts, some magistrates are experiencing, because of the succession problem, and there have been airing there a lot of grievances. So please conduct further studies into that kind of situation, where the problems lie. Apart from the pay, what are the other problems faced by the magistrates? Yes, I will be reflecting the wastage rate at the magistrates to the judiciary administrator. Well, let's put to the vote the FCR 2017-1844 paper. Those against, please raise your hand. Those for, please raise your hand. I think the majority of members endorse this proposal. I declare this proposal endorsed. I think it's about time to adjourn the meeting.